Good evening, America. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Just the News, No Noise, where we are tracking an inferno of epic proportions raging across Los Angeles. We're going to get you up to speed on that all throughout the show. Of course, I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you as always from Washington, D.C. in the WiderFishCoffee.com studios. As you know, Widerfish Coffee is the official coffee of Just the News, and you can go right now to WiderFishCoffee.com, get a fantastic 10% discount off just by pointing your camera at that QR code or by using the promo code Just News. Good folks supporting good causes. All right, we've got wall-to-wall coverage on the California wildfires over at justthenews.com and, of course, right here at Real America's Voice. And in just a few minutes, we're going to bring in my amazing co-host, Amanda Head, who's sidelined a little bit by the fires. There's a lot of electricity out there, but she's going to join us with live reporting along with Steve Hilton, the host of the wildly popular Steve Hilton Show, for a live report. There's amazing things going on the grounds there. It's very bad. It's very fast moving. It's a very dangerous situation, changing by the minute. Now, one thing that hasn't changed is that these fires keep occurring in a state that for more than 3 decades has been told repeatedly by Donald Trump, by the Congress, even its own state auditors, that it has not done enough to mitigate fire dangers or improve its ability to fight the growing scourge of wildfires. I'm old enough to remember when the late Senator Dianne Feinstein, a Democrat, asked the investigative arm of Congress for a report on California wildfire prevention. She got an earful in return. I think we can bring this report up on screen. It's an old document, but it's really important to see. The report from 1994 warned that California was ill-prepared for the fires that were going forward. Fast forward to 2018, and President Trump blasted Governor Gavin Newsom for not dealing with overgrown vegetation after a deadly fire. That year, in 2022, California's own auditor blasted the state, saying it was not doing enough to pressure utility companies to do more to prevent sparks and clear vegetation near transmission wires. Okay, so 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, they made that warning. Just last month, guess what? The state acknowledged one of its biggest utilities hasn't been transparent about its fire prevention efforts, and so therefore the state doesn't really know if they're any safer than they were 3 years ago. And of course, during last year's presidential campaign, Donald Trump highlighted the failure of California to tap into vast reservoirs of water in its northern mountains to bring much needed water to the south. Now, why is that important? Today, we've had multiple reports that firefighters fighting one of the 3 big blazes in LA, this one in the Palisades region of the city, found empty fire hydrants, no pressure, no water. Bad sign, right? Something that could have been fixed. We still don't know how today's fire started, but the early evidence suggests California is far from fixing a wildfire crisis that keeps repeating itself in front of our very eyes and often with deadly consequences. On that point, at least 2 people are reported dead today from this morning's fires. In the Palisades alone, fire has consumed a stunning 1,000 homes in its first 24 hours. Fire officials say that makes it the most destructive fire in LA history. It's only 24 hours old. All right, a couple quick notes on other headlines making news today, and then we'll turn right to our guest. President-elect Trump's legal team asked the U.S. Supreme Court to block Friday's sentencing in the New York hush money case. This after a federal appeals court refused to do so. We're keeping an eye on the high court to see if the justices intervene. And Republicans today in Congress keep getting some fast work going. They introduced legislation to impose term limits on themselves, on future lawmakers, and to give President-elect Trump the power to take control of the Panama Canal, a debate that's now raging all across the world. Pretty interesting stuff. You can get caught up on the details on those 2 stories over at justthenews.com. All right, as promised, we're going to bring in my amazing co-host, Amanda Head, and the host of the Steve Hilton Show, something you should watch every day. It's a great, great show. He's a Los Angeles resident, both of them in the middle of this inferno. Steve, Amanda, great to have you on. Steve, let me start with you. It feels a little bit like this is a bad version of the movie Groundhog Day, where California has a wildfire, they promise to do better, and then California has another wildfire, and you find out they haven't done much better. What say you?
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, it's great to be with you, John and Amanda. I'm sorry it's such terrible circumstances. It is an epic apocalyptic disaster. And of course, the first thing we have to do is capture the human side of it. The fact that we've got these incredible, heroic firefighters battling these blazes, trying to protect property, trying to protect life. And of course, so many people in Los Angeles are going to be displaced. Kids can't go to school. There's nowhere to live. They're not all wealthy people in Pacific Palisades and the other areas affected. So this is an absolute nightmare, a human catastrophe, and it's going to get worse. I think we haven't even begun to understand how bad this already is and how much worse it can get. But exactly as you say, this is a moment when we can look at the multiple failures that have not only potentially caused this, but certainly made it worse. Of course, it's true that disasters happen, natural disasters happen, but they're much worse in places that are badly run. And there is nowhere in America that is worse run than California. And if you go through the various issues that are contributing right now to the scale of this disaster, exactly as you just laid out, we can see that it is, as a result, a direct result of the kind of incompetence and mismanagement. And it's not just cluelessness and ineptitude. There's a really important point people have to understand. It is the prioritization of other things that have caused these conditions, the prioritization of ideological objectives instead of practical things that can actually manage situations well. So, for example, when you look at the situation in terms of the fuel that has been left to just get worse and worse, that fuels these fires. Now, people have been pointing out, I've seen Democrats today saying it's ridiculous for Republicans to say that this is about forest management. This isn't a forest, this is a city. That's true. But of course, the vegetation you have there, chaparral, is exactly the same kind of concept, which is you've got to keep the fuel under control. And so for years now, we haven't had the kind of fuel clearance, the fire roads being built, the fire breaks being built, the management of all of that. Why? Because of the prioritization of environmental objectives. But how good is it for the environment to have this kind of catastrophe? Same with water. People say, oh, this is drought and it's all to do with climate change. That is ridiculous. We've got all the water we need in California, but for years and years, we've had people in charge who won't do what is necessary to capture it, to store it, and to get it where it's needed. And then you look at how this thing started in the first place. They say that they're going to investigate and tell us what happened, but they never do. The fire not far from the fire we're talking about today, a couple of weeks ago, just before the holidays in Malibu, almost certainly started in a homeless encampment. Of course, these homeless encampments have been allowed to proliferate throughout Los Angeles and California year after year after year, with dangerous behavior there that, again, could well be the cause of this. They're going to investigate. Will they ever tell us? That is in doubt. So yes, we do need to do a lot better. But the only way that's going to happen is if you have real political change in California. Meanwhile, we have to just focus on what's right ahead of us, looking after the people who've been affected and thinking of those firefighters who are doing just incredible work right now.
Yeah, they are. A lot of heroism today and a lot of great citizenship. I think we saw Steve, one of the great actors out there helping people today, people stepping in and helping each other, which is a reminder of how gracious our country can be when crisis strikes. Amanda, you've been out and about capturing some of the humanity and the consequences of this extraordinary disaster. You've got some video footage to show us. Show us what you got.
Sure, yeah. So I have a couple videos, one of which I took for myself. And if you guys get that rolling, I can just kind of describe what's happening. But one of which, this is the video looking out one side of one of our windows. And as you move towards the south, this is looking southwest out of our window. And you see how dark and ominous those clouds are. And that, I believe, is probably coming from the Eaton fire, because if you triangulate our residence, we're kind of smack dab between. We've got Palisades fire to the west of us, the Hearst fire to the north of us, and Eaton to the east of us. So other than that direction that you're looking there, we're pretty surrounded. Although I will say, earlier today, I think it was about 3 hours ago, they were finally able to deploy some air support to the Palisades fire. And that's because there has been a slight reduction in the wind. I was looking at some of our hourly wind measurements, and it looks like tonight, at least where we are, it's going to be down in the low 20s, which is about 20 miles per hour fewer than last night. So I'm grateful for that. But you guys pinpointed on something. I mean, Steve, in particular, the humanity aspect of this. Of course, every time around, we hear the same refrain from California elected officials. It's, we're going to figure this out. We're going to employ the proper infrastructure. We're going to have innovative ideas and fix this issue. And time after time, the people of California are left with their lives and their residences in shambles and ashes. And I know that it's easy to say, well, you know, it's California. They're run by Democrats. Democrats have had a supermajority in Sacramento for decades. And while that's true, you have to remember that this time around in November, Donald Trump won, I think, over 6 million votes in the state of California. He lost in 2020 by 30 points. The state of California, he lost the state of California in 2024 by 20 points. So he gained 10 points in the state of California. So let's keep that in perspective. But with respect to the wasteful spending, as Steve was alluding to, you know, you got hundreds of thousands of dollars going towards high rises in downtown Los Angeles for homeless people, which absolutely that's needed. However, if you were to put one of these units on the free market in real estate, you know, that type of unit would go for $500,000. So we're spending money there. hundreds of thousands of dollars on a suicide net for the Golden Gate Bridge. And yet Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, deemed it appropriate to draw almost 18 million funds away from LA Fire Department. Now, money's fungible. Yeah. But you can't directly say that that went to illegal immigrant resources. But because of the fungibility of money, if you take it away from the fire department and you're also allocating new resources to illegal immigrants, the housing, all of the things that they need when they come across, it's not that much of a stretch to say we took away from this to put it to this, and now the people of California are suffering.
Yeah, well put. There's an extraordinary dynamic, Steve. Gavin Newsom really staking out the last few weeks. He wants to be the resistance to the Donald Trump agenda in Washington. Meanwhile, in his own home state, he seems to not be able to handle the crisis he's at hand. And then meanwhile, the new Democratic mayor that Amanda just mentioned, Karen Bass, she was overseas on a junket when this fire broke out. How do Democrats look to everyday constituents in a Democrat state with a crisis like this?
Well, this is what we've been suffering under for, I mean, it's more than a decade now. It's been one party rule. If you look at the state legislature, it's like 25 years that they've been in total control. They've had a supermajority. And yet, what are the results? We see the results on every issue. It's not just the issues that are relevant to this disaster. It's a disaster and a failure on every front, right? You've had this far left experiment, one party rule. There's no one else to blame. They've been in control of the state legislature, the statewide elective offices, all the big cities, etc. Right? And the result is we have the highest rate of poverty in the country for most of last year, the highest unemployment, the highest housing costs, the worst homelessness, the explosion in crime, the worst business climate in America, which is incredible when you think about California's reputation as the home of innovation and enterprise, on and on. You know, the highest gas prices, everything is a disaster. And so what do when you point this out? They either try and point fingers at Republicans ludicrously and try and go to it's all Trump, or they just try and pretend that it's not happening. So you have Gavin Newsom running around saying that California is a model for the nation, literally using those words, even on the issue of homelessness, laughably. So they're just a total in denial about it, delusional. But exactly as Amanda says, what's really, really important for everyone to understand who's not in California is that the tide is turning. People are waking up. You've got real progress being made by Republicans in California when they stand up for real, strong, common sense Republican values. You saw that in Huntington Beach, one of the cities that's right. One of the well-known cities in California. A few years ago, it was a 6-1 Democrat-controlled council. 2 years ago, a group of Republicans got there and took control 4-3, introduced immediately common sense reforms on crime and homelessness and all these things. Just now, it went 7-0 Republican. So it shows that when you fight and you stand up for common sense, you can win in California. And I think that's going to happen in the future, probably sooner than anyone thinks.
Capitulation is not going to win anything. It's holding their ground. I think it's something California Republicans had to learn the hard way, but they seem to be doing it. Real quickly, Amanda, I want to turn to you one more time. There is a lot of uncertainty about what happens over the next 24 hours. None of the fires are technically under control at all. The winds are down, but even 20 miles an hour moves a blaze pretty quickly. That's still a pretty heavy wind. At one point today, I think it's the Palisade fires, was moving at a rate of 5 football fields a minute. That's how fast it was advancing forward. What are fire officials telling us about what could be happening tonight?
Yeah, the number one thing that I'm hearing is make sure you pay attention to what your city and what local officials are telling you regarding evacuation. Fortunately, where we are, we have not really had any serious indications that that's going to happen, but especially in pieces of Pacific Palisades where I think another 30,000 residents were ordered to evacuate, and the Eaton fire as well, which is like the base of Altadena and Pasadena and South Pass. Those are areas that people really need to be paying attention. And as this moves into other parts of the cities, look, if you don't have to use your go bag, great. That's the best case scenario, but at least have your things together. If you have cherished, photographs or something like that, make sure you collect everything that is valuable to you. Fill up your car. I refrained from doing laundry today because our power was out for most of the day, but also I think I just kind of felt bad about using any water. I don't know if we necessarily are in a situation like that, because another one of the water issues, and especially with respect to the Palisades fire, is that they have these water reservoirs, but because there isn't a buildup of fresh water on top of it, there just simply isn't enough pressure. So you're not going to be able to spray that effectively. But I also, if I could get that footage from inside the car back up there, that was a video that someone sent me who was driving north on PCH, and they were driving past iconic places like Reel Inn. I think they had already passed Duke's and Gladstone's and Chilada. And these are places that are, you know, decades old establishments in Malibu. And everybody thinks that, you know, Pacific Palisades and Malibu and all of these, you know, these are ritzy places. These are sometimes, in these cases, these are people who have lived there, who these homes have been passed down through their family. They've been in these homes for 80 years. I saw a woman earlier who her parents were in their 80s and they had lived in their house, I think, for 65 or 70 years. It's heartbreaking to see what's happening. So to protect yourself, make sure that you've got a means of getting out if you absolutely have to, and make sure you're listening out for those alerts.
Well, listen, to both of you, thank you for giving us firsthand accounts on the ground. We really benefit from seeing that, and both of you stay safe. We're thinking of you and all of your neighbors in this really difficult time. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Amanda. Great to have you on together.
Thanks, John.
Thank you so much. All right, folks, coming up after the break, Senator Ron Johnson is here. Yeah, I'll ask him if the government should be looking into California's water management after this latest fire disaster. I bet he has a strong opinion. We'll have that right after the break. Hey, folks, the first 100 days of President Trump's new administration will shape the future of our nation. Will Washington deliver on the promises that matter most, like securing the border, restoring energy independence, and cutting wasteful spending? My friends at AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, are holding our leaders accountable with the first 100 days tracker. This powerful tool keeps you informed on the administration's progress, tracks key priorities, and empowers you to join the fight for a stronger America. And during these critical first 100 days, AMAC is offering an exclusive deal. Get a load of this. 47% off a 5-year membership. Normally $60. Now you can join for just $32. You can be a card-carrying member just like me. As an AMAC member, you're not just staying informed, you're unlocking valuable benefits like discounts on travel, insurance, and retail, and receiving America's #1 conservative magazine. Plus, you'll have a voice in Washington through AMAC Action. And you're also going to join a community that stands for conservative values and a brighter future. No matter your age, this is your moment to get involved, stay informed, stay engaged. How do you do that? Join AMAC today and help ensure promises are kept and America is restored. Visit amac.us/justnews now to join AMAC at this special rate and access the first 100 days tracker. That's amac.us/justnews to join AMAC at a 47% discount and become part of a movement that's making America great again. Welcome back, America. About 5 years ago, I wrote a column for the Hill newspaper that suggested that maybe President Trump could create an office of transparency and disclosure and start to force from reluctant bureaucrats the information they never want to give up to the American people. There's that column. It's been around for a long time. I think there's an opportunity in the Trump second administration to do that. My next guest, he's been on the front lines of transparency for a long time, first getting us many of the information we were deprived in the Russia collusion case, then the Hunter Biden case. He's sponsored multiple pieces of legislation to impose transparency on the federal government. And he recently gave an interview where he called for a cabinet secretary called the Secretary of Extraction, an idea I like a lot. Joining us right now from the great state of Wisconsin, Senator Ron Johnson. Sir, good to have you on the show.
Well, John, didn't realize I was ripping off your idea, but I guess it doesn't surprise me. We've been trying to extract information from the, federal, from the executive branch quite some time. So it's a problem. No matter who's president, the deep state does not give up its secrets easily.
Yeah, no, you're right. You didn't rip off idea. I think you improved on it a lot. I love that idea of Secretary of Extraction. When I saw it, I had a big smile on my face. There are a lot of things that I think in the next few years, if we could get released, would go back and help us understand maybe the last decade of challenges we've had. One of those, and it comes up time and again, and because you've been to Ukraine many times, I think you know the concerns about this. What role the government, U.S. government, may or may not have played in the overthrow of President Yanukovych, the Russian-friendly president back in 2014. Is that the sort of body of documents that could be beneficial not only to historians but Americans today as we kind of referee all we've been through?
I mean, there are just so many things. I mean, that's part of my problem becoming chairman of the permanent subcommittee investigation is, where do I set my priorities?
Yeah.
As you know, don't exactly have a huge budget, so I'm very limited staff member-wise. So, yeah, I mean, again, there are just so many things. The federal government has been lying to the American public probably from the start, but certainly during my lifetime, you go back to the JFK assassination all the way through, what the CIA was doing. There's a reason there's a CIA term called limited hangout. When they get caught with their pants down, they admit only what they have to admit. And they pretty well rely on that. Disclosure is taking care of it all. So, I mean, listen, I do not trust the federal government. I just don't. I don't think these bureaucrats are honest with us. As I said, the deep state does not reveal its secrets very easily.
Yeah, our founding fathers didn't trust the big central government, so you're in good company with your distrust. There's no doubt about it. As you look out over the next couple of months, another big opportunity is to make a meaningful cut in spending, get that deficit down, make some changes that would be historic and long overdue. You wrote a column in the Wall Street Journal. Everybody's been talking about it. You were kind enough to come on my podcast. We had a great conversation, but it actually isn't that hard to get back to close to a balanced budget or balanced budget. That's something you made everybody come to understand over the last few days. Tell us a little bit about your idea, because I think it has a lot of traction in Washington right now.
Well, it starts with people just understanding the numbers. You ask people, they don't know how much the federal government spent last year. So I'm just laying out the numbers. Prior to the pandemic, we spent $4.4 trillion. Then we went on the COVID spending spree in 2020, spent $6.6 trillion. And for the last 5 years, we spent $6.5 trillion on average. Biden is proposing in his budget spending $7.3 trillion this year. Who knows what we'll actually end up spending. But I mean, this is absurd. The analogy I'm using is a family has a sick member. Maybe they make $100,000, serious illness. They've got to spend $50,000 in medical bills. And then the individual gets cured, but they keep right on spending $150,000, borrowing $50,000 that they don't have. I mean, nobody would do that, okay? But that's exactly what the federal government does, and that's what they did. So again, from $4.4 to $6.5 trillion, establishing a whole new baseline. And so I'm just saying, guys, we've got to return to a pre-pandemic baseline. I've thrown out three options. And by the way, so you leave Social Security, Medicare alone.
Right.
So you use Biden's 2025 budget numbers for that. And interest on the debt is what it is. But all the other spending categories, you grow by population growth and inflation. So if you do that with Bill Clinton's 1998 spending, you'd spend $5.5 trillion this year. You'd have a balanced budget. If that's too aggressive for you, go back to President Obama 10 years ago, 2014, you'd spend $6.2 trillion. If you go back to 2019, inflate it, it'd be $6.5 trillion. So you still, at a minimum, you're saving $500 billion. At a minimum, a maximum you're saving about $1.5 trillion over 10 years. That's $15 trillion. Yeah. Again, these are, nobody thinks that way. I mean, I think conservatives in the House have been saying, well, we're going to demand $2.5 trillion spending reductions over 10 years. I mean, that's peanuts.
It is peanuts.
And by the way, I don't think anybody voted for Donald Trump expecting Republicans to adhere to President Biden's outrageously high spending levels.
Yeah.
If you want to rein the federal government, if you think we're overregulated, well, stop funding the beast. And again, I'm not talking anything draconian. I'm talking about literally spending at Clinton spending levels or Obama spending levels. By the way, here's a little wrinkle to it. If you just take President Trump's own budget, his last budget from fiscal year 2021, and take a look at his 2025 spending estimates, his budget, you'd spend $6 trillion. Again, spending Social Security and Medicare are what they are.
They're protected, right?
So again, this is a reasonable proposal. As one of the members of his incoming administration, as I sent this to him, said, it's shockingly reasonable.
That's what I've heard from a lot of people. That was a very profound comment. It hit at just the right moment, I think, as people are coming out of the holidays, starting to think, all right, we got a lot of work ahead of us, and it made the work look a lot more sensible when you dug it in the way it is. You've had a chance to socialize this with your fellow senators in the Republican caucus. What's been the reaction? What do you think the path forward is for taking this from a column to something that could become reality?
Well, it's paradigm shifting. I've had a lot of support. I think one of the things I need to talk about, here's the process. Sat next to Lindsey Graham. He's chairman of the Budget Committee. I'm on the Budget Committee. He seemed very receptive of it. So if we pass a budget, we provide committees the top line numbers. So if you're on the Appropriation Committee, now you can't do discretionary spending appropriations through reconciliation. You'll need 60 votes, but you can instruct the committees, here's your budget number. Figure out how to prioritize spending below that number. Spend not a dollar more. in terms of reconciliation, you can use all the mandatory spending. Again, Social Security and Medicare is off the table, but everything else could be on it. Through reconciliation, we can do anything we want to with mandatory spending. There's $1.3 trillion of other mandatory spending. That even excludes Medicaid. $1.3 trillion is what we have for other mandatory spending, which we should take a look at. So there's, again, trillions of dollars to take a look at. Let's set a budget like families do, like businesses do. Let's live within our means. What a concept, huh?
It is an extraordinarily common sense concept, which is probably why it hasn't been talked about much in Washington lately. I want to ask a little bit about something Congress did just as they were going out the door for the Christmas holiday. They passed the Social Security Fairness Act. I think that's the actual name of the law. It added another $20 billion a year in Social Security expenses to a fund that's already in decline, danger of starting to become bankrupt in 2023, I think it is. And the CBO says it's going to take a year off of that bankruptcy projection. Is there an opportunity as some of these savings start to come in from discretionary spending in the government to start beefing up those funds? Is there an appetite for that as well? Because otherwise, a decade from now, there's a crisis on the horizon.
Well, again, the greatest threat to Social Security is the fact that if we don't bring other spending under control, so that we will not have the financial wherewithal to plus up the benefits when the trust fund runs out. And you're right. I mean, very irresponsible. I vote against it.
Right.
You know, nice sounding bill, right? Well, the bill removed the fix where public sector employees were basically double dipping into Social Security. Now, some, got harmed by that. The fix was not, completely fair. Now, we probably could have fixed that for about, I'm told, $20 billion. Instead, we just eliminated the fix that they passed in the 90s. That cost $200 billion. And again, moving up the surplus or the trust fund's insolvency up 6 months to a year. So I found it grotesquely irresponsible. I ran saying I want to protect Social Security. That does not protect Social Security. That threatens it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's remarkable. I know you did vote against it, and there was a good reason to do that. With the time we have left, I think people are watching this extraordinary inferno in Los Angeles. Lots of historic structures, homes, people really racing for their lives in drastic conditions. The issue of fire management in California has been around at least 30 years. I remember Senator Feinstein dealing with it back in the 90s and doing some reporting then as a young AP reporter. Whether it's vegetation management, utility management, water management, it seems like California didn't prepare for something that is as inevitable as what we've seen on screen. We know these big fires are high potential. Your thoughts and what Congress might do to maybe force change in California?
Well, another example of complete failure of Democrat governance. Across the board. I mean, you have to maintain your forests. You have to clean them up. You have to get the stuff that burns. All the tinder. You've got to clean that up. You have to actually save the water. I mean, they have abundant water coming out of the mountains with the snowpacks. They don't save it because they got to save the snail darter, and they're not keeping their electrical grid up to snuff. That's a big problem across the board. We're not. We're going to actually go to a meeting with somebody. We're going to be talking about the vulnerability of our electrical grid to EMP and GMD.
Right.
So again, government, it just doesn't solve problems. It exacerbates, creates more problems than it ever solves. And if it's Democrat governance, orders of magnitude worse.
Well, one thing I'm certain of, you're going to be on the front lines of pushing for less government and more common sense solutions. You've been doing that for years. Also, more transparency as we started this discussion with Senator. It's always a great honor to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. All right, what a great conversation. Folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, the parents of one of the hostages taken by Hamas, Eden Alexander, will be with me to discuss what they think of President Trump's promise that all hell will break out in the Middle East if hostages are not released. A lot of people paying attention very seriously to that comment. We're going to have a conversation about that right after these messages. Hey, America, I try to eat healthy, but I'm human. Occasionally, I fall off the healthy eating wagon. You know what that's like. Even when I mess up my diet and nutrition, Field of Greens keeps me on a healthy track. What's the point of supplements or green drinks if you aren't 100% confident they'll improve your health? Field of Greens is radically better. It's the only one that promises better health or you can get your money back. Just enjoy a delicious glass of Field of Greens each day, and at your next checkup, I can assure you, your doctor will notice your improved health. Mine did, or you're going to get your money back. Each fruit and vegetable in the Field of Greens was doctor selected for a specific health benefit. I love the energy I get with Field of Greens and their better health promise. your doctor will notice your improved health or your money will come back to you. I got you a discount to get you started. Just use the code JUSTNEWS at fieldofgreens.com. That's the code JUSTNEWS at fieldofgreens.com. Get started today. Your doctor will take quick notice. Welcome back, everybody. Promise to keep you up to date on that Inferno fire in Los Angeles. Fire officials telling us just a few minutes ago the death toll has now risen to 5. 5 people now dead in the Los Angeles fires. A lot more chaos still ahead. We're going to keep you up to date all through the night here, Real America's Voice. In the meantime, we don't want anyone to forget that there are still 8 American hostages held by Hamas after the October 7th massacre in Israel. We can't forget their names, we can't forget their stories, and we can't stop fighting for their freedom. Right now, we're very lucky to be joined by the parents of American hostage Eden Alexander, who's being held by Hamas, Yael and Adi Alexander. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you, John.
Yael, let me start with you. For people who don't know what happened to your son on October 7th, he was an IDF soldier. Tell us a little bit about the day and his capture so people remember where he was that day.
So Eden was stationed on the Gaza border on October 7. I've been in Israel. I came to visit him. It was a holiday weekend in Israel. It was Saturday. It was supposed to be like the happiest holiday, you know, everyone in service in the synagogues. And it started with alarm in Tel Aviv. I'm calling Eden, texting him, asking like what's going on, because I knew he's in Gaza, on Gaza border. And then he's calling me and he's saying that he's seeing horrific things. And that's it. I just said to him, just be safe. I love you. And we are going to talk later, you know. And that was the last time that I heard from him. It was the 5 longest day that a parent can have.
Yes.
We didn't know where Eden is. We didn't know anything. And after 5 days, they told us that Eden is hostage and is being captive by Hamas in Gaza.
How heart-wrenching. Adi, tell us a little bit, what has the Biden administration, the U.S. government been able to tell you? Is there any information, any new information about his whereabouts, his well-being? What do we know?
So except for the last video that Hamas released a month and a week ago, when for the first time, we saw Eden. We saw him healthy. We saw him speaking. That was a great sign of life for us.
Yeah.
But since then, we have no information, and we're just hoping, just sitting tight and hoping to everybody to get out of there.
Yeah, that's we all are hoping. We're all praying for that and that it happens soon. I can't imagine the anguish you've been through these last 15 months. I want to talk a little bit about the change in politics in America. We just had an election. Donald Trump is going to be back in the White House on January 20th. And he recently said that if these hostages aren't released by the day he gets in, they'll be hell to pay in the Middle East. Yael, let me start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about how the dynamic in your mind changes with President Trump coming to power?
So we feel that it's a great dynamics. We feel that the Trump's effect is actually an effect, and I hope all the parties will use January 20th as a deadline, just to pass it over the finish line.
Yeah, that's very important. There are lots of moments. I've seen some of these photos where families get together in New York and New Jersey that are just remembering and praying for the hostages. The families never forget. Tell us about what those families like yours need. What can we all do in America to support you during this time? What do you need from us?
Well, just to keep this issue front and center. Don't forget, we have American hostages being held there after 16 months. We have another 45 American citizens that were killed on October 7th. And just to account this massacre, you have to really go back to 80s. That was the single day with the most American casualties. after September 11. And we have to keep pushing, push our representative, our leaders, just to seal that deal.
Yeah, we do. We can't stop. Yael, I want to ask a little bit about your son before he volunteered to join the IDF. He was a swimmer, I know, a Boy Scout. He shares something in common with we. We're both Knicks fans. Tell us a little bit about your son.
So Idan is the most friendly and caring and loving boy that you can meet. He came from a really large group of friends. He's a great son, you know, just to have fun with him in the city, in New York. It's like, this is, you know, I wish to be in this day again, just to have some shopping with him and go to a restaurant and to see a show or to go to the museum. Like, we're doing all this kind of stuff in New York together, and I miss him so much.
Yes, I know you do.
I really miss him. Yeah.
We look forward to that day when those shopping trips can resume again. I know that's probably not far in. I think there's a dynamic at work that might work here. For those in government here in Washington, we get distracted often, right? We got all these things going on, political crises and budget crises. But what's the most important thing you want members of Congress, President Biden, President Trump, to know that would make a difference for you and your family?
We have to rise above politics and work in collaboration with with the current administration and the future administration. We know they do that. Just we have to make sure that this time diplomacy will work, and they will be successful in sealing that deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's exactly right. This is not a time for politics, it's a time for common sense action and diplomacy. Our hearts and our prayers are with you each day, Yael and Adi. Please know that we can't wait for Edan's free release soon. We're going to celebrate that. We're going to get you back on the day that happens. Thanks so much for joining us and giving us an update.
Thank you
John.
so much.
Such a great honor to have you on. Thank you so much. Wow, so much that family has been through, and yet resilient in their determination to get their son back. All right, we've got a quick commercial break around the corner. We're going to talk about one of the year's biggest New Year's resolutions people make, improving your health and losing weight. Did you make it? Are you intending on keeping it? We're going to have some good ideas for that right after these messages. Welcome back, everybody. I know for years I say every year I'm going to lose weight. This is the year, and then I didn't do it. But I ended up discovering an amazing company called Brickhouse Nutrition, and with their two extraordinary products, Field of Greens and Lean, I got the weight off, I got the blood sugar off, I got my liver function up. I was making my doctor pretty happy. It's time for an update because I know a lot of us made our New Year's resolutions to lose weight. We're going to bring in a medical doctor, researcher, and nationally recognized expert on vitamin and mineral supplements and health. He's also the medical director for Brickhouse Nutrition and the creator of the weight loss supplement called Lean, Dr. Michael Kim. Dr. Kim, good to have you back on.
Hey, John, it's good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. First off, I know you're in California. Are you safe? Are you okay? We're worried about all of you.
Yeah, we are safe. We did get the evacuation call, and now we're just we moved. We kind of took the car south and took the family, and it was just kind of found some places to be able to do meetings and talks and chat. So we're in a good place.
You're not even letting Inferno stop you from your work. That's amazing. Well, you be safe. We're thinking of you and all the great folks at Brickhouse Nutrition. You guys do such important work. All right. I learned a lot when I first studied Lean before I started taking it because I always want to learn what it is. And there are just some amazing natural ingredients put in this that solve, I think, the number one problem I suffered, which is I want to lose weight, but I can't get rid of those cravings. And all of a sudden, I started getting on Lean, and my cravings went down. I see something in there called chromium, some other things. Tell us the magic of what's in this supplement that brings down those cravings and starts you on your weight loss journey.
For sure. So I think what people don't realize is you're kind of a byproduct of what you eat and kind of your culture and what goes on and how you consume food. So some of it is definitely a hormonal level control. You know, some of it is improper insulin control and its function. Yep. So chromium helps with that, helps modulate sugar, your dietary carbohydrates, and then that in turn will decrease some of your cravings. So we also have that in the Fimbriata stem, which in India has been used for decreasing cravings. So we kind of built this product so that it could help with all different facets of that. And as you start to modulate in your weight loss and you start eating a little bit better, all that kind of comes into play, helps you modulate some of your hormone levels. And then from there, most of the time, the cravings are what start to decrease. Because you're starting to regulate your sugars, you're starting to regulate some of the dietary intake, you're not as hungry anymore, you can't consume anymore, it's just getting all of that put together so that you could get your body into control for the new year.
Yeah, that's really important. One of the phenomenons that goes with people who struggle with dieting is the yo-yo diet. I go up, I go down, I go up, I go down. There are some significant risks in going into that flight pattern, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what ends up happening is that each time somebody goes into a yo-yo dieting phase, I share this with all the clients that I work with, and the major thing is that they usually don't have structure. So they're trying to figure this out by throwing another curveball into it, which might be lean or it might be just, slightly working out. But if you put together a structure and a plan for yourself that is, we're going to work out 5 days a week, or say, let's go 3 days a week. Then we're going to add a couple of supplements that are going to help with what we already know are issues with glucose control or cravings, or if it's just something that gives you a little bit more energy. Those are the type of things that you need to add on and kind of build upon the structure. And I think that's the reason why yo-yo dieting happens, is that we just kind of lose structure in what we're trying to get done. The target isn't clear. And, once we get that down, the yo-yo dieting starts to really slow down. The yo-yoing stops, it becomes something staple. And then losing weight is just a very, let's say losing weight is a byproduct of a healthy diet and a healthy structure.
Yeah. And when I started the structure, I had a real simple structure. It was lean in the morning, a big walk in the morning, go to work, and at night, field of greens. I take my shake at night before I go to bed. And boy, all of a sudden, over about a month's time, the cravings went away, and I wasn't thinking
awesome.
About food anymore. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
But you're right, structure is it, because there's a lot of excuses you can make for going off course on a day, but keeping that structure is key.
Yeah.
There's a big fad now, all these injectable drugs that people are taking, and then you see people losing some pretty dramatic weight. Tell us why they're working, and are there any risks to these injections?
I mean, there is definitely. I guess some of the comical look is that there's called the Ozempic face, right, where people start having their face starts losing some structure, and they start they lose weight, but they might lose some muscle mass with that. There is, I mean, I would say some of the fears that people have with that are you kind of have to just regulate that with your doctor and your physician. Some people react a little bit differently there. I think a lot of it is for what its purpose is, which is to take your glucose control down and your glucose levels down. I think it's fine. Yeah. I think that there are some component of that where I think we're always looking for some. That's kind of where I talk about with the structure. We're always trying to look for something that's trying to give us a false sense of that structure. And if we're able to go in there, working out, creating a good diet, if you need something on the side to help you, like lean, to assist you and give you another, like daily morning structure of like, hey, I need to take this supplement in the morning. This is going to help me out with energy. It's no different than coffee, right? Yeah. Everyone has a structure in the morning where they're like, hey, look, we got this schedule. Wake up in the morning, I get my coffee. For you right now, John, it happens to be wake up in the morning, lean, and then go and take a walk. So I think building on that. But I mean, injections, if you're being well monitored by a physician, they're safe, and I think they're okay. I think if they're used purely for aesthetics and weight loss, I think there's better ways, but definitely better ways of going about that.
Yeah, particularly some of the people taking injections aren't doing the other stuff like the walk and the structure, and so
absolutely.
You're not getting the benefit of those other parts, right? Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah. So let me ask you about this. The first time I took lean, there was a little pamphlet with it, and it said lean is not for the casual diet. Like, wait a second, I do want to be casual about this, but that's a very important point you want to make with this. Describe why you tell that to people who are about to start on lean.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're looking to lose a few pounds, it's pretty easy just to cut back on your food, get some diet in, and if lean is for people. For kind of the frustrated dieter that needs about 10 pounds or more to lose, and especially if you've got the history of the yo-yo, and really to lose a few pounds and then gain it back is just kind of it's discouraging. It can be potentially dangerous because you might just end up gaining more weight on the way back. But the lean was created so that it could give you some steady base, and over time, as it's the companion to a stable workout regimen, a understanding that like, look, this is not going to solve a bad diet. It's not going to solve not being active. And John, you're a great example of that, right? You wake up in the morning, There's some foundation in there with lean, and then you go for a walk, right? It triggers these series of events that tells me, okay, John's got a good, stable, solid foundation of what he needs to do in the morning to understand what it takes to create a healthy lifestyle. And that's what lean is for. Lean is for the reminder, but also has benefits on the metabolic side, which is increased energy, helps you maintain some blood sugar, helps control appetite and cravings, it helps burn fat and convert that into energy. So that's the way that I created lean, is for that as a companion to a structured, well and healthy lifestyle.
It's the way to make sure you have a long-lasting weight loss and a healthier lifestyle, not just a momentary bump up and down. You guys have been so instrumental to my life personally. I can't thank you enough for what you, Dr. Kim, and your team has done there. It's been special to me to watch, and I really believe in the product because I saw its impact on me. My doctor saw its impact on me.
That's great, John.
I'm
Thank
always
you so
grateful.
much.
I mean that seriously. All right, folks, here's the deal. New year, a great discount. If you go to takelean.com, use the promo code JustNews20, all right? Takelean.com, promo code JustNews20. You're going to get 20% off. You're going to get started. I'm telling you, you're going to see a result right away. If you're struggling, this is the way to get going. We'll get Dr. Kim on again later in the year and get caught up on some other new stuff going on there. In the meantime, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about RFK Jr.'s influence is even reaching some blue states. That's right. Will he be able to make America healthy again? That's a question we want to ask. We're going to answer it in the next block. Welcome back, folks. All right, I was at lunch today, and someone got on the healthy. Well, we're going to make America great again. We're going to make America healthy again. And one of the people at the table said, you know what? Then we're going to make America beautiful again, because if we're healthy and great, we're going to feel beautiful. That is how excited people are about the Make America Health movement that is sweeping across this country. Joining us now to discuss the phenomenon is health and wellness expert and the CEO of Daily Nor-E, Caroline Carraro. Caroline, great to have you on.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, John.
All right. I feel like we're in a really revolutionary moment. Like after years of all getting fat and lazy and complacent and not exercising, it feels like we're on the edge of a health revolution. Am I overthinking this?
No, I think you're right. That's what I've been saying to people too over the last few weeks and few months. I think this is really just common sense. You know, to your point of the folks at lunch today, making America beautiful again. The way that I've been explaining it is, in order to fulfill the mandate of making America great again, we first have to make America physically and mentally healthy, right? And so that can't happen without this Make America Healthy Again agenda. And really, it just goes back to the brilliance of the Trump team embracing RFK and seeing the absolute win-win there. And now you're seeing this kind of once in a lifetime, I'll just call it, bipartisan support. You couldn't pick two more polar opposite politicians in Donald Trump and Gavin Newsom, yet they are together in this agenda to make America healthy again. So there'll be different ways of going about it, but you cannot discredit the fact that this is a very rare moment. And it's important because the reality, you're facing 74% of the country obese or overweight. And critically, you're looking at 38% of our youth that have prediabetes. So the future is not looking bright when it comes to American health and well-being. So this is something that is absolutely no nonsense, needs to get done. And I do think we're going to see some change pretty quick. So hopefully we'll start to see the impact of that. It's necessary, to say the least. And it's a very rare time in history when everyone's sort of seems to be on the same page about this.
We've somehow managed to pull health above the partisan divide, and that is such an amazing moment because it's been stuck in the partisan divide for about 2-3 decades now. You mentioned Gavin Newsom. We got about a minute left. Tell us what he did over the weekend to embrace one of RFK Jr.'s key components of this.
Yep. So plain and simple, I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole bill, but he is just getting behind removing processed foods and dyes from the food, specifically in things like children's lunch programs, right? So when you look at the lunch programs, you've got about 58% of Californians, children are on this program. About 50% of children across the country, it's 28 million children are on school lunch programs. It's one of the easiest ways that we can really implement this agenda. And I think you're going to see a lot of movement from RFK focusing on children. How do we get to the root of that? Well, the government directly funds the SNAP program, right? So that's something that we can impact right away. Also doing things like removing soda from the SNAP program, so that can't be right now. It's the #1 purchased item with food stamps and assistance programs is soda. So I think those things are going to be the easier fixes. Newsom is behind that, which is great. And like I said, I mean, I think this is one of the only times you're going to see the Trump team and Newsom on the same page.
Yeah, and Colorado Governor Polis also jumping in and praising RFK Jr. It's a really remarkable moment. We're going to keep on this all year long. I want to get you back on the show because you're doing such amazing work, Caroline. Thanks for joining us today and give us a quick update. Great to have you on the show.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for all you do. All right, folks, hard to believe the hour went by like that. I hope we're going to get Amanda back into safety, out of the fires, and on